Welcome to my three-part series on making a 3D low-poly papercraft from a PDF using a Cricut Maker. This video shows how to make a low-poly 3D papercraft like this dolphin design from a PDF of all its pieces with edge numbers to glue together, using an electronic cutting machine like the Cricut Maker instead of doing it all by hand, and then assembling your own version. In this series of making a 3D low-poly papercraft from a PDF using a Cricut Maker, this bonus section shows a faster way to do parts 1 and 2, but there are pros and cons. So here's the basic strategy for this series. This bonus section covers the same basic approach as parts 1 and 2. It's useful for reinforcing that process that was shown in those videos. That is, using Inkscape for importing the pages of a PDF one at a time, and manipulating the edge numbers, score lines, and shapes, and then modifying those objects in DesignSpace. The important difference is that parts 1 and 2 primarily show keeping pieces independent from each other. This bonus video shows treating all of the pieces together from any one page. There are pros and cons, of course. For the separate piece method, a pro is that they can be enlarged more in DesignSpace. Another pro is they can be rearranged and rotated in DesignSpace for more optimal cutting. But a con is it takes more time and work in both Inkscape and DesignSpace. For the all pieces method that are combined from any one page, a con is that you're limited to enlarging in DesignSpace since all must fit on one mat. Another con is it can't be rearranged or rotated in DesignSpace individually by pieces to optimize the amount of paper needed, so you might waste paper. But a pro is there's faster manipulation in both Inkscape and DesignSpace. To understand the scope of this series, in part 1 we looked at importing a PDF to Inkscape, then manipulating elements so Cricut will understand, and saving as an SVG. In part 2, we saw uploading to DesignSpace, adding to a new project, tweaking for different tools such as the pen and scoring tools, and then scoring, drawing, and cutting on the machine, in my case a Cricut Maker. In part 3, we saw assembling the pieces at a sped up rate. But in this bonus footage, we get to see a faster way of converting the PDF and tweaking in DesignSpace, but this may not be the best choice for all projects.
Now I'm going to show you a little bit about the Mom Dolphin PDF that's blue. I brought in page 1, so I've set up, called the PDF here on the PDF layer. Page 1, there's nothing on page 1 yet, but I added that because that's where I'm going to copy these things. And I've decided that I'm going to cut this on my Cricut on 8.5 by 11 papers. So the way these are positioned is fine. I don't need to do each piece separately, so I can group it in DesignSpace and save paper. So I think for this, instead of doing each piece separately, like I showed before with the numbers separate and the score line separate, what I'll do on this is I'll do all the numbers first. So on this one, I'm going to zoom in a little bit so I can see better. And again, it would be nice if Edit, Select Same worked for this, which it does with some PDFs, but it did not on this one. So we'll have to do each of those separately. Go around. It's a little tedious, but it still is, I think, more optimal than printing and cutting and scoring by hand. So in this case, I'm doing every number on the page. not just per piece. And I can sort of eyeball it to see if there's a little bounding box around it. I have clicked it. But inevitably I'll miss one, and so I showed you before what to do about that. Hopefully this time I won't, but if I do, I can show you again. So, seems pretty good. So I'm going to edit cut and make sure I got them all, which I did. Good. So I'll go to page 1, edit, paste in place. And remember, while they're selected, do object to path and combine. So now they're all together. So in DesignSpace, I'll only have to change that to pen and it'll take care of all the pieces, but I won't be able to separate them. So there are trade-offs with both ways. I'll hide page 1 for right now. And so now I'm going to grab these valley fold lines. And it looks like most of them are that type. And again, I'm going to combine these even across pieces so that when I'm in DesignSpace, I only have to change them to score type once instead of piece by piece. But they'll be together, combined, so that's not good for separating the pieces. But in this case, I know that'll work for what I'm doing. I think I have them all. I will do edit cut. See, I forgot one there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit paste back in place. Keep them still selected. Add that one. I'll try it again. Edit cut. Told you I'd probably miss one. And I missed another one. So we'll do edit paste in place. And I'll grab this one. And now we'll edit cut and go to page 1, turn the visibility on and do edit paste in place. And while they're together, we'll do path combine. Go to stroke style, change from custom to a solid line. And now's a good time to save. It's always a good time to save your work because we know we don't like crashes to happen after we've done some work. So I'll hide page 1 and see what's left. So we've got a few mountain fold lines. This is a pretty simple PDF as far as number of pieces per page. I've had some that had 12 pieces per page and there were dozens and dozens of numbers. All right, so edit, cut. Make sure I got all those lines, which I did. Turn on visibility of page 1. We'll edit, paste in place. We'll combine those. Remember these we want to turn to the 3 dashed lines. And then go to extensions, modify path, convert to dashes. And I'll save it. Turn off this page and see how we're doing. So we've got everything except the outlines. So here I don't think I could just fill this shape. I don't think it's a closed loop. No, that didn't work. So I'm going to have to at least combine these paths. So I'm going to try to grab these first. Might be easier. Make sure I get all of them. I'll zoom in and see what I got. And I got a few here by mistake, so I'm going to unclick those. Sometimes it's just as easy to click and select as it is to do the bounding box select. Now, that one might work. We'll see what happens. So for this one, I'm going to just cut for a minute and see if it cuts just these or also cuts that out. All right, it didn't grab any of these, so that's good. So I'm going to paste back in place. So I like to work on this layer when I fill this. Didn't I say paste in place? Oh, on page 1. I want to edit, paste in place. Yeah, it's always good to check to see over here which layer you're on as well. So that's interesting that it seems like it pasted in place here, but clearly these are not showing, so there must be something there. So I'm going to move these to the top. Must be on top of some odd white boxes that are in this PDF. Same thing with here. I don't know quite what's going on here. I don't think I need this whole big box, so I'm going to hold down the shift and not do that one. And now it looks like these are just the outline, which is what I want. So I'm going to combine those and fill. I should change the color because this is going to be blue. Just want a light blue. All right, and then we will select that, cut, go to page 1, paste in place, move to the back, turn off visibility of page 1, save. There's something here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this first from this PDF layer. I'm going to click on whatever this is and delete it. And that's just particular to this PDF. I've not seen that before. I don't quite know what's going on with that. So we'll try to grab this piece. I'm going to mostly, nope, I didn't get the top of it. Mostly grab, I still didn't get the top of it. Mostly grab that. And I got this line, which I don't want. And I got this, which I don't want. So it looks pretty much like this is what I want. Although all of this, it looks like there's something there too. So I'm going to hold down the shift key and click here and see if I can get rid of that big bounding box, which I did. So these are just the lines, and it didn't get these. So let's click that and that and that. And now it looks like I got it. I'll cut them just to see. Okay, and I'll paste back in place. That is what I wanted. And that certainly reveals there's some junk there and some junk there. So for right now, I'll just move it to the top. And I'll combine. You don't want to move this because the lines that we've already done and the numbers that we've already done are positioned for this to stay exactly where it is. So that's why I'm not trying to move things around before I get them grouped and combined. So we'll fill this, grab the fill, cut it, go to page 1, paste in place, move it down, turn off page 1 visibility, going to save, save often as I've mentioned before. Going to take this and delete it, and there were some things here that were showing up that so I deleted that. They probably won't matter because they're just on this PDF level, but might as well get rid of them. All right, let's do this piece. See what we can do. Get most of it. Here's a square that doesn't look like it belongs. I'm just going to click off that and see if I can grab that and delete it. I don't know what this person did with this PDF. All right, so that looks better. I didn't want this little line. I didn't want this one. That looks pretty good. We'll cut and see. Yep, we'll paste back in place. We'll combine. Fill. Select it. Cut it. Move it to page 1. Paste in place. Move it to the bottom. Close page 1 visibility. Go back to the PDF. We'll save. And we'll delete that The reason I started with those pieces is because this piece is odd shaped and it's going to be easier to draw a bounding box around it once those are out of the way on this PDF layer. So now we'll select all of these, and I don't see any giant white boxes, so that looks pretty good. So just make sure I'll cut it and see. Yep, paste it back in place. I will combine into one, put a fill in it. I'll cut the fill, go to page 1, paste in place, move it to the bottom, and save. And I'm going to do something a little different this time. Instead of cleaning up the PDF, I'm just going to delete this layer and I'll start with a new one when I bring in other pages. That way none of those white boxes and extra stuff is left around. So we don't need to group each piece now. I don't know what I accidentally clicked on something. Excuse me, we don't need to group each piece because all of these are basically together. So what I am going to do is I'm going to group all of these because these were one page. And I'll move them off to the side. And now we'll do the rest of the pages of the PDF from that dolphin mother blue. Okay, these are all of the pages of the blue dolphin, the blue part of the mama dolphin. As you can see, we had 10 pages over here from the PDF. Each chunk, as I explained, I did differently, so each individual piece is not separate, but the way it is each page was grouped. So now I just want to I just want to arrange them on the page so that they're fairly close together. It's jumping around a little bit. I think it's because I have screen capture on. Come on. Let's try and snap. So we'll just put these. It's not going to matter how close together they are in DesignSpace because you can't move each piece separately. But some of these that were on the page by themselves, like this one we would, but each of these and that one and this one, it doesn't look like it's got numbers. Select it. Maybe I didn't unlock it. I did. Guess just grouping them in a reasonable place where they're halfway together so I can get the dimensions of them is the thing I was mostly going for. Not needing to be relative to the page. This one doesn't look like it has numbers. I know it doesn't have any score lines. I'm going to zoom in and make sure I move the blue to the back. All right, I did. A little worried there. It's a lot involved. Okay, so now I will group them all. And change the measurements to inches here. I will note the width and height here because I want to match that in DesignSpace, at least to start, because then it will match the dimensions relative to the start of it all with the white part of the dolphin. So I will save. And I could have saved this as part of the other file, but I went ahead and made the blue part its own file. So I'll open it in DesignSpace and show you again how that works. All right, I've started a new project in DesignSpace. I like to make my canvas a light gray. Go to upload. We'll find that SVG. It thinks it's large, but it really loaded pretty fast. I'll upload it, grab it, and put it on the canvas. Of course, at the current size, it's way too big for any mat that Cricut has. But we're going to change that and actually make it even bigger. So the size from Inkscape, I'm going to take off the constraints of width and height, and we're going to do 29.687. And the height, 31.877. So now it's in proportion to the size of the white part that we did earlier. We can zoom out, and all of this is grouped. We'll ungroup it. And now, I guess it's all grouped again. For some reason, it groups it twice. So now, basically, each page is its own entity, some being one piece, some being one or two. So we have to go into each chunk and do what we did before. So I'll start with this one, and you'll see how it is on this one. So we'll zoom in a little bit. So before, on the white part, we would have to do each of these 4 pieces separately, but since they're grouped and the numbers are actually combined, we can't, but it kind of makes it easier too. Again, it's a trade-off with what you want to do. So what we'll do here is, this is what we have selected. So each of these colored blue parts we want to keep as basic cuts. We want to find the pen. Thinking it's that. I'll just try this. I'll change it to pen. We'll pick extra fine point. And we'll do red, even though I'm going to use a blue pen. And see if it changed it. And it did. So at least that way I can see that that's what that was. So those are the numbers. Now this errant line tells me that that's going to be these dashed lines, because that's what seems to happen. So we know it's not these that are basic cut. It's not the pen. So one of these two is going to be score, and one is going to be kept at cuts. So this one, hard to tell. Okay, I'll click on this one first. Since it's not grabbing these score lines up here, we know it's not the scores. It must be the dashed cut line. So this is good. This is where we want to use contour to get rid of these errant lines. Like I said before, if you go into contour, you're going to see several at the top here that are grayed more than the dark black ones. Just exclude those. And then that's clean that up. And leave them as cuts because they're going to be like perforated cuts. All right, so that means this last basic cut then that's left is really score. So that's taken care of that, which seems pretty fast, but these have to stay together. So I'll save my project, call it low poly dolphin on blue parts. And we'll do that for the rest. I'll do this one again because it's got some errant lines just to show you. So we keep it grouped, keep it selected. We know it's not these two. Let's see, that's not going to be the scores because it didn't get it. This is probably the pen. Let's see if that is the pen. It is. So that's good. So we'll select the whole group again. We now have pen and basic cut. One of these other two is going to be scores, and one's going to be the perforated cuts. This one didn't get this score right here, so I know that means it's the dashed line score. So we want to go to contour, get rid of some of those extraneous lines. This one has these two. See how they're grayed out from those? Just exclude them. It's nice they're always at the top. Select this group again. We now have this basic cut, which means these are scores. If I select the right one. And always, most of these you can undo fairly easily. That was good. I tried undoing a couple things that did not really undo the way I wanted. So I'm hesitant to do that if I don't have to. All right, I'm just going to finish these up and send these to the Cricut maker and cut and assemble. Enjoy.
Here's a little recap of what we just saw. Import a PDF to Inkscape, one page at a time. Then I use layers to organize the elements more easily. I grab the edge numbers. I do path object to path and then path combine. I grab the valley fold lines. I do path combine and then I change the stroke to a solid line. I grab the mountain fold lines. I do path combine, then change the stroke to a 3-dash line. And then the important part on that is extensions, then modify path, then convert to dashes. Then I grab the outline sections. I do path combine. Then I bucket fill the desired color and I remove the stroke. I save the SVG, open in DesignSpace. I change the edge numbers to pen extra fine. I change the solid valley score lines to the type score. I use the contour tool to remove unwanted errant lines from the mountain fold dash lines, but I leave those as basic cut. I send to the machine that will score, draw, and cut the pieces, and then I assemble and enjoy.